Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
Good.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Now, we got Valentine's Day coming up. Valentine's Day. Go to emailrevealer.com, get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. But also, too, in the spirit of Valentine's Day, we can locate long-lost loves, old girlfriends, old boyfriends, ex-wives, even ex-husbands. Anybody you want to locate from your past, we can find them for you at emailrevealer.com. And also, too, in the spirit of Valentine's Day, if you want to catch somebody cheating online, you give us their email address. We trace it back to online dating websites and catch them cheating online in the spirit of Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Okay, I'm really excited today. We got a great guest, Sander Hicks. He's the author of Slingshot to the Juggernaut, Total Resistance to the Death Machine, means complete love of... And it's not there. Love of truth, okay? And
of the truth, that's right.
Of the truth. Fascinating guy. He's involved with the Truth Action Project. You could find his website is sanderhicks.com. And he's also got a YouTube channel on YouTube, Sander Hicks. And on there is an excellent interview he did with Imad Salem, who was the bomb maker in the World Trade Center bombing. So we were supposed to get him on our show here, but Sander Hicks got him first. Sander Hicks, are you there?
Hi, Ed. Yeah, sure am.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm a huge fan. Let me tell you, I tuned in this morning. I was checking out your videos. The first one I found was a speech you gave, I think it was in Oregon. And right off the bat, you did this thing where you had a moment of silence, a Quaker moment of silence. And I said, you know what? I'm going to join in with this guy. I'm going to do it with him. And it's set my whole day off on the right track. Even my daughter said when I woke up, she says, what are you in such a good mood for? Okay.
Exactly. What are you in a good mood for? I'm in a good mood for a lot of things. That's great. That's a great question she asked you. But I'm so happy to hear that. It gives me a sense of serenity.
I want to thank you for that. Okay, you got me off on the right start today. But tell us about yourself. Right. Who is Sander Hicks?
Okay, well, I'm a writer and an activist. I'm a peace activist. I was born and raised in the D.C. suburbs, and I've lived most of my adult life in New York City. I'm in the Quaker tradition of standing up against oppression and violence, and I'm a Zen Buddhist, and I was raised Catholic, and so I'm kind of making sense of Christianity and Eastern wisdom traditions. I've written 2 books about 9/11 truth, and I believe that state violence and state terror are very real, and we've been conditioned to deny their existence. So part of my Zen practice is to kind of wake up and get out of fantasy and turn to reality.
Very interesting, very interesting. And I noticed, too, you had a bookstore at one time, right? You were a publisher,
yep.
but now you're doing carpentry.
That's right. I run a carpentry business. LoftBedsNYC.com is our website. We're about to launch Loft Beds USA. We make custom carpentry space-saving solutions, and we ship them countrywide. So across the U.S. and Canada, we can ship you a custom loft bed or cabinet. And I know that's not what we're here to say, so pardon the commercial spiel. I'm sure we'll get into deeper things, but that's how I make my living.
Yeah, no, but it's really cool stuff. I looked at it. If you go to sanderhicks.com, there's some examples. He calls it like Zen carpentry, and it is really cool looking stuff. And then even on the YouTube channel, it's like these really cool staircases. You can make like a loft bed out of it. And I was going to ask you about it no matter what. So it was really cool looking stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to be a Renaissance man. I was college educated, work as a carpenter and as a businessman and a designer. And what's great about running your own small business is I've got my own office here. I've got my own fast internet connection, and I make up my own schedule. So lately, what I've been doing is actually taking a little time here in the office in between designing projects and working on a video, because I shot about 2 hours worth of video down at the inauguration protests. I was there. I met Michael Moore. I gathered 100 petitions for the Truth Action Project. I've been supporting and running the local Truth Action Project group here in New York. So, Ed, 2016 was a huge breakthrough year for the 9/11 Truth cause. We had, about the 28 pages?
I saw something about it on your website, but I didn't read it, no.
Okay, great. Well, the 28 pages were recently released. Obama, in his final days, or his final months, back in June or July, he released a very key secret document that Bush had hidden from the public. This was from the Congressional Report on 9/11, and it covered who financed the 9/11 attacks. And then Obama did sort of an about-face, and he tried to prevent Congress from passing legislation that acted upon these revelations, because Congress passed the JASTA bill right after the 28 pages were released. So now the 9/11 victims' families have the legal right to sue Saudi Arabia and other sovereign states that usually have sovereign immunity from being sued by plaintiffs. And if you know your facts about 9/11, you know that it came from inside the United States shadow government, Pentagon, CIA, and private contractors, and that the Saudis were involved, Israel was involved, but neither Saudi nor Israel could have acted alone. They surely would have acted with the compliance of the right-wing military industrial complex in this country. So that's part of the mission of fearless activists for peace, and that's what the Truth Action Project is all about. So the Truth Action Project has been advocating for a new investigation of 9/11 in light of the new revelations that we've gained from the 28 pages.
I actually do recall the 28 pages now, and in fact, I did read the 28 pages, and I believe I put them up on the Opperman Report website too as well, in the members section up there. If it's not there, we'll put it up shortly.
Good.
You know what? Let's see. Let's go back into the whole story about your friend there, Dr. Graham. David Graham, the dentist.
I love speaking about Dr. Graham. It gives me courage and it gives me hope.
Yeah.
Dr. Graham is a lot like me. He was a man of faith, a man who felt he had a mission, and we're living in an age that's very jaded, and a lot of people think religion is corrupt or religion is stupid, and I don't think we're going to solve that question tonight, but we could just say that this guy really lived his faith, and he was a man of action and a man of faith. And so he had a mission because back in 2000, he met two of the 9/11 hijackers. He met Nawaf al-Hazmi and Fayed Banahamad. And he was alarmed because they're kind of like their babysitter. This guy who was connected to Washington, D.C., was in Shreveport, and this guy, Muhammad Jamal Khan, had all kinds of crazy connections to the local Barksdale Air Force Base. And Ed, you probably know that Barksdale Air Force Base is one of the upper echelons of the U.S. military intelligence. That's where Bush went on the morning of 9/11 when he was flying around the country. And Barksdale Air Force Base is nuclear capable. It's where nuclear-armed B-52s fly in and out of, and they're responsible actually for a lot of the first strike capability of nuclear deterrence. And so Barksdale Air Force Base was something that Graham felt protective of. This guy was a Vietnam veteran. He wasn't exactly a left-wing peace activist. He was a super Christian evangelical. I believe he had voted for Bush. And he won the Bronze Star back in his Vietnam days, where he went as a volunteer, medical, dental assistant. He was kind of a military intelligence affiliated medical volunteer. So he was giving medical assistance to the Vietnamese people in exchange for finding out a few things. So we found out about a attack on a local air base and won the Bronze Star medal because of his heroic intelligence gathering. So in a similar way, in year 2000, he felt that Barksdale Air Force Base was under some sort of threat because these Arabs that he met were very mysterious. Muhammad Jamal Khan and his two kind of underlings, who later became revealed to be two of the 19 so-called hijackers. And I say so-called because it's never been proven in a court of law, Ed, that these guys were indeed the 9/11 hijackers. But we've come to know them as the name 9/11 hijackers. So, Graham wasn't just like a guy, telling tales. He actually created a paper trail. He warned the FBI 10 months before 9/11, and he warned the Secret Service, and he later warned his congressmen and senators in Louisiana. And he after 9/11, he felt guilty. He felt like something was very, very wrong because his warnings had been ignored. So he kept on corresponding with his members of Congress. He corresponded with the 9/11 Commission. He kept on corresponding with the FBI. And finally, right around 2005, he said, I'm going to write a book about it. And the FBI at this point was very hostile. They said, no, please don't do that. And he was poisoned on the verge of publishing this book. And he also made a ton of videos to prove his case. And I became in possession of those videos after he died. He died of the poisoning sometime around 2007. I went down in 2008 to Shreveport. I confronted the FBI, who clearly had some sort of level of very emotional guilt. I confronted the FBI face-to-face, Special Agent Stephen Hayes. He seemed to be not very cool and not very happy to see me when I showed up at his office in Shreveport, Louisiana. And, God is a very powerful intelligence, and God is on the side of people like Dr. David Graham, because I really believe that David acted in the footsteps of Jesus. And, for whether or not you believe in Jesus, it's kind of like, Jesus as a historical figure was a man of peace, a man of nonviolence, a man of confronting state violence. And that's exactly what David did. So David really kind of got us out of these theoretical debates and other forms of crap, and just really got into walking the talk and, even giving up his own life for his mission. So, God works in mysterious ways. Even this is really funny. I just recently got in the mail a commendation from the State Senate of Louisiana. This kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Wasn't expecting this at all, but one of David's old friends, the guy actually who gave the eulogy at David's funeral, his name was Deacon John Milkovich. He was the local deacon in the local church, and he later became a state senator. Isn't that funny? Politically ambitious, conservative Democrat of the South, became a state senator, and I'm still in touch with John, and he recently sent me this commendation. I tacked it up to my little office wall here in Queens, New York, and that's what I'm looking at right now. State of Louisiana, Louisiana Senate, commendation for trailblazing and courageous investigation.
Now, Dr. Graham was poisoned with the antifreeze, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty rushed job. They didn't. It was pretty curious. There was also bullets fired into his home the same time that he went to D.C. to visit with the 9/11 Commission. There was all kinds of intimidation. The FBI was asking him, "How's your health, Dr. Graham?" "No, I don't think you understand. How's your health?" And this is something that State Senator John Milkovich also confirmed, that there was plenty of overt threats. Basically, a lot of people would get the message and go the other way and do things that were in their own self-interest, But Graham was divorced. He wasn't really beholden to anything but his sense of mission. And to that, to people who really believe in their sense of mission, that is probably the biggest threat to this violent, greedy, blind state.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
That the United States government is serving.
Now, if Dr. Graham was associating with these shadowy figures, these shadowy Arabs, with the strange backgrounds. And what made you conclude that it was the FBI that killed them and not these Middle Easterners?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, it was the FBI that was threatening him. It was the FBI who had a motive not to have his book come out. So in any murder investigation, you have to look at who had the motive, means, and opportunity. Mohammed Jamal Khan, the babysitter of these hijackers, was in fact apprehended and deported right around this time. And so Mohammed Jamal Khan was in custody and has been kind of spirited out of the country undercover. He never extradited. He skipped out on his own extradition hearing, a deportation hearing. So the terrorist babysitter, Mohammed Jamal Khan, who later bragged on videotape about his connections to Washington, D.C., his connections to his ambassador. He was like a Saudi-born Pakistani. So he had Pakistani citizenship. But Graham was a citizen investigator who actually had a hidden video camera and got Khan, before Khan was deported, got Khan to come back after 9/11 and talk about the guys that he had met. So he basically gets Khan to admit on videotape that he had in fact introduced Graham to these two guys who later became 9/11 hijackers. So the more you see about the case, you sort of see who had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to kill Graham. It wasn't Arabic people, because it was FBI guys who showed up in the emergency room in Texas when Graham was first poisoned. And it was the FBI guys from the Houston FBI who started intimidating doctors, Ed. They said to doctors, this guy was crazy, this guy is clearly suicidal. FBI even floated this suicide rumor to the local media. It's that scary. It's that scary, and it's that overt that the FBI was clearly trying to besmirch the man's reputation even after his poisoning. So it's pretty alarming. It's pretty alarming at how blatant the facts of this case are. That's why I got a commendation from the State Senate of Louisiana. And this case is not over. It's not closed. The case is not even open yet. I've reached out to the U.S. Attorney of local Shreveport, Louisiana there. I presented my findings. It's not like there's a total media blackout. There's actually KSLA TV down there. Jeff Farrell, heroic investigator. We don't have these kinds of heroic investigators in New York television, but down in Louisiana, this guy Jeff Farrell is very interested in kind of unusual stories, and he could see the writing on the wall. So he's had me on his local. I think it's like a local. It's a major local affiliate. I don't know if they're Fox or ABC or what, but Jeff Farrell has helped me get on local Shreveport television several times. So there's a lot of people in Shreveport, Louisiana, who know the real deal, And so this is actually what's good about Trump supporters. Whether or not you're a Trump supporter, a lot of these Trump supporters are sick of the cover-ups of people like Hillary, even people like Obama, people like Bush, and that's why I commend Donald Trump. I commended now President Trump, when he was on the campaign trail. I said, it's great that you took out Jeb Bush with, basically just mentioning 9/11, and the Bush family goes crazy, and they say, how dare you, you're like Michael Moore. And it's no, he's simply saying there's no way that Jeb Bush is going to grandstand on 9/11. This story has gotten so old, right?
Let me ask you a couple of questions. You mentioned that Dr. Graham had these undercover videos, and you say that you're in possession of those videos right now?
Yeah, but anybody could go on Vimeo and see the highlights. So
okay.
I've already published the highlights. It's on Vimeo. Little trailer for a future film called American Resurrection. It's a film I haven't made yet, but I made the trailer 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like great stuff. Now, what about when you met Michael Moore? Did you get a chance to exchange notes with Michael Moore when you just met with him?
It was very brief, and he was walking away, but I got his attention, and he endorsed our petition. So he said he was in support of the Truth Action Project petition for a new investigation of 9/11.
Now, are you comfortable with his documentary and his reporting on this event?
Well, it was a good start,
yeah.
And he also made it at a time in which it wasn't cool to talk about these things.
That's true.
So, when was Fahrenheit 9/11 made? 10 years ago, we know so much more now. So I think the time is ripe for a new Fahrenheit 9/11. So I do plan on reaching out to Mr. Moore again, and he seemed like he was interested in talking to me some more. He said, "Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?" And he didn't say it like that. He doesn't have a New York accent, but he said his Michael Moore accent. He said, "Who are you?" Something like that. I have to work on my Michael Moore impression if I have a future in this business.
You're going to have to practice, yeah. Now, you mentioned Barksdale Air Force Base, right? Now, I had Daniel Hopsicker on the show a couple of times, and I know you...
Great. I love Daniel.
So do I. Why doesn't this guy have a Pulitzer Prize, man, with the work he's done? Is beyond me. But now he mentioned on this show, the last time he was on, he said that, Muhammad Atta, he went down there to get Muhammad Atta's criminal records, and he found out that he talked to the police department, and they said no, because Jeb Bush showed up here and with a truck, and they backed up all the criminal records of our police department, and they put him on an Air Force cargo type plane. He described the exact kind of plane because he's a plane guy.
C-130 Hercules, yeah.
Oh, you heard the story. Okay, now did that stuff go to Barksdale Air Force Base?
Oh, I didn't hear that. Is that what was alleged?
I remember him saying that it went to an Air Force base. Now I'm wondering if it's Barksdale, because that would be a big... Because Bush went there, too, on the day when he's flying around with his pet goat book.
That's what's interesting, yeah. Well, the day that Bush said, I have to be at the center of things. I want to be at the center of power. I need to be in control. And so they flew him not back to Washington, D.C., where he thought he should go, but they flew him to Barksdale Air Force Base. So, the conspiracy or the theorist part of me wants to suggest that perhaps there was something there. Perhaps there was some sort of key military intelligence operatives that needed to be in touch with the president at that moment to say, fear not. We know we have this under control. We know exactly what we're doing. It might have been something of a surprise to you, but now this is what you have to do to just kind of go along with it. And the benefits to your administration and will be vast because...
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
You'll be able to have higher approval ratings and lower levels of dissent, and there's more fear and intimidation, and people are going to just go along with the Patriot Act and everything. So I think it's more likely than not that something like that might have happened, because Bush wanted to go back to Washington, D.C., and his plane was basically commandeered by some sort of higher power.
Right.
So the U.S. president was not in charge on 9/11 because Air Force One took off from Florida. Bush thought they were going to D.C., and somehow somebody said, nope, you're coming to Barksdale Air Force Base. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, very, very unusual. Boy, I got so many questions for you. And what do you make of Bush's appearance lately? His public appearances, he seems to be almost like an imbecile, like he has some kind of brain damage. What do you make of that?
Yeah, no, I'm... personally, I think he could use the miracle of recovery in his life.
Okay.
At age 40, he gave up alcohol, but he never really kind of did any kind of recovery program, or at least he says he gave up alcohol and drugs. With the thing with the pretzel, choking on the pretzel, and
right.
Early on in his administration, there was some weirdness. Recently he remember, he was holding hands with Michelle Obama and dancing and rocking back and forth and smiling at a funeral.
Yeah.
Right? Like a funeral for a police officer. He was laughing and smiling, and clearly the guy's on something. He's, and so he's tried to give up alcohol and drugs in his past. He's had a big history with cocaine and alcohol. Went on a big drinking binge after he lost his first congressional race. I was the publisher of Fortunate Son, the Bush biography, so I know a few things about Bush, and my heart goes out to the guy because, he's clearly feeling a lot of guilt for being probably one of the worst presidents in history, and probably one of the bloodiest. We've killed now. Our country is responsible for the death of about 1 million Iraqis because of the unnecessary and violent invasion of Iraq.
It's funny because
just think about that.
Just as you were saying Fortunate Son, I was writing down Fortunate Son. I was going to ask you about that because you're the guy, the publisher, that was behind that book that that some forces, I guess the Bush people, went to such great lengths to silence that book, correct?
Yeah, they did. They kind of had their eye out for that book. It was by a Southern writer named Jim Hatfield. He was a great working class sleuth. He had a nose for scandal. He thought it was great that there was so much rich history of scandal, intrigue, intelligence work, shadow government associations like the Iran-Contra world, the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, Mena, Arkansas. So he was kind of like connected. Jim Hatfield was kind of connected to the very corrupt law firm out of Little Rock called Rose, the Rose Law Firm, where Hillary Clinton, Jonathan Pollard, Vince Foster, they all worked there at the Rose Law Firm. And so Rose Law Firm was also connected to the Iran-Contra circle because there was a lot of cocaine trafficking coming through the Mena, Arkansas military base, once again. So Jim Hatfield was a writer. He had like all kinds of Texas and Arkansas connections. And he wrote a definitive biography of young George W. Bush. St. Martin's Press was going to publish it in fall of 1999, but then they refused to. Some dirt came out about the author himself, so we stepped in and we republished it.
Yeah, but what do you think it was in that book that they were so desperate to silence?
Oh, well, there's sort of a gap year in the early 70s. George W. Bush goes from being a playboy to doing community service at Project Pull in Dallas. Project Pull was like with low-income black kids, and this didn't make any sense to any biographer of Bush, why he would just suddenly become so pro-community service. And it's long rumored to be true, according to the Washington Post, that there had been a cocaine arrest at this time. So it looks like what Jim Hatfield found was he developed some sources. He didn't do it perfectly right. He had them as anonymous sources, but he claimed that they were like high-up sources inside the Bush campaign at the time. And he told me who they were back in like year 2000. So we're going back now in my history like 17 years. But right. But I think that's what it was. The fact that these rumors, the kind of rumors that back in year like 2000 and 1999, people still thought like, with Clinton inhaling marijuana almost, destroyed his campaign. And so people thought that a cocaine arrest in the early 70s would kill the campaign of George Walker Bush. And so people were very paranoid. So that's why when St. Martin's Press brought out the book, they even had George Herbert Walker Bush, the former president, the former CIA director, the first Bush president. They had him on Fox, actually just overtly telling lies, overtly saying, like, we tried to reach out to the author, and Jim Hatfield later told me that was completely false. Like, it's no surprise to have a former director of CIA blatantly lying on television, but they bent over backwards to discredit the book. Later, somebody found Hatfield's own Texas criminal records, and so then that's what they used to help discredit the book by leaking his criminal records to the Dallas Morning News.
Now, there was some rumors around that time that there's some photographs of George W. Bush when he was like in college, and he's standing up in a bar and his pants are pulled down. I think he's urinating. Have you heard that story about that photograph existing?
Yeah, that I think is more on the level of rumor. I think the story was that he like danced naked on a bar somewhere, and that it had been reported in Matt Drudge report, but without proof. And, in journalism, you have to have two sources. Got to get sources on the record, ideally. Kind of depends on the publication, but a good publication won't run with a story unless there's proof. I actually think the stuff we can prove about the Bushes is much more interesting. The stuff about, like, let's talk about Jeb Bush. When you talk about did Jeb Bush help cover up the 9/11 trail in Florida, well, I think it's actually it's probably true because of Bush's history with the Iran-Contra operation. If you really want to study the truth about 9/11, study American history, study 20th century history, study the circles of secrecy and intrigue in the Reagan-Bush White Houses study the financial connections, follow the money trail, look at Bank of Credit and Commerce International, look at William Casey and off-the-books operations, look at the virulent anti-communist politics that said we have to stop the Sandinistas at any cost. These people were kind of like fanatical in the same way that Allen Dulles of the CIA was fanatical about toppling Castro, and this led to a rift with JFK, and then eventually we think Allen Dulles had a role in JFK's murder. In the same way, a fanatical obsession with the Sandinistas led to a fanatical drug and weapons trade operation called the Iran-Contra operation. And Jeb Bush had a role in this. Jeb Bush was a young chief of the Miami-Dade County GOP, right, and participated actually in the murder of, back to Daniel Hopsicker's work, Barry Seal. So according to Al Martin in his book, The Co-Conspirators, young Jeb Bush got very nervous and sweaty when Al Martin asked him about his role in the cover-up in the murder of a CIA drug pilot by the name of Barry Seal. So rather than talk about, the lousy, unsubstantiated rumors of young W. Bush, whether or not he urinated on somebody in a bar or danced naked in a bar, it probably did, but it's not as relevant to me as like American history. Iran-Contra, follow the money, follow the drugs, follow black market operations.
Right. But the reason why I asked you about that is because I was going to ask if you covered the anthrax portion of the 9/11.
Oh yeah,
see, yeah.
That's huge. I'm glad you mentioned that because not a lot of people go into anthrax. A lot of people are like,
I think it's a key.
Let's
yeah.
look at the much more colorful cinematic spectacle of the towers exploding, and those things are very relevant. But thank you. Anthrax is. Okay, here we go. So anthrax. Anthrax is very interesting because the anthrax attacks are not as well investigated and they're not as often talked about with the 9/11 cover-up. But you're very right to bring them up because, once again, the powder trail or the footprints go back to Fort Detrick, Maryland. They go back to Dugway Proving Ground, the Battelle Memorial Institute. I mean, the facts are the facts. The facts are the anthrax that was discovered in the anthrax attacks of September and October 2001 was highly weaponized. It was microfine. There was it was a billion parts per, billion spores per cubic inch, I believe. So that means that it came from a very high-tech operation. It could not have been one guy. The fact that they blamed Bruce Ivins, who was the lone scientist. His colleagues said that Ivins could not have done it. He didn't have the equipment. He didn't have the means to create micro-fine weaponized anthrax. So I've written about this in my book, Slingshot to the Juggernaut. If people are interested, they should go on Amazon and buy a copy. You can get them for very cheap at this point. The book's been out for like 5 years, so. But I spent a whole chapter pretty early on talking to Barry Kissin. Barry Kissin is down in Frederick, Maryland. Great researcher on the anthrax attacks.
I actually had Special Agent Richard Lambert on the show, who's suing the FBI, and he's the one that was in charge of the anthrax investigation. And he was briefing Dick Cheney every day at the White House on anthrax. And he said out of everybody at the White House, Dick Cheney was the most interested in the anthrax investigation. Couple of things though. Did you come up with? I've heard that Robert Stevens' wife was the real estate agent for Muhammad Atta. Did you come up with that?
No, you mean Robert Ivins?
No, Robert Stevens, the first victim of anthrax, the first guy to catch anthrax down there that was working for that tabloid magazine.
Oh, okay, right. Like the photographer?
Right.
Right, he was down in Florida?
Right.
No, I didn't hear about that connection. I don't know if it's true or not.
Do you know who bought that building?
I did know about that. Now, hold on. Slow down because, yeah, that's right. The person who bought the building and then, destroyed it was it Giuliani?
Yes, Rudy Giuliani's company went down there and bought that building for some ridiculous amount, too, like $40,000. There was air conditionings on the roof of the building that was worth like $100,000. But somehow he got a hold of that building. Now, Kind of off topic, okay, but it just brings up...
No, that's right on topic, because Giuliani is now active. He's with the Trump administration. His political star is rising. So there's a news hook here. It's newsy to talk about Giuliani. He was being floated as a possible Secretary of State nominee just a couple of weeks ago. That guy is up to his eyeballs in culpability for 9/11. I've met him. I've confronted him. I got put into handcuffs for asking him about his foreknowledge that the buildings were coming down. So Giuliani is a great topic. I'd love to talk about Giuliani.
Okay, then good. Then how did you tell us a story about how you confronted him about this and his reaction?
Sure. So he was the front runner for the GOP nomination 9 years ago in Colorado. I happened to be there for a speaking event, so we asked him, because it's documented, Giuliani's own words on YouTube. You can see that he says, I was being interviewed by Peter Jennings, or he was being interviewed by Peter Jennings, and he said that they were set up at 75 Barclay Street, and we were told that the buildings were going to come down, and so then we got out of there, and then the buildings came down. End quote. So that means that whoever gave him the foreknowledge that the buildings were coming down gave it to him, but not the police and not the firefighters. And so the firefighters died, Giuliani got out of there, and then later became quote unquote America's mayor. Also, look at the exculpation of the crime scene. Any former U.S. prosecutor would know that you cannot violate a crime scene. A crime scene is sacrosanct in an investigation, so you have to treat everything as evidence, right? We had such a huge architectural anomaly that 3 buildings collapsed. 3 steel-framed buildings collapsed when not a single steel-framed building has collapsed due to fire in the past. And for him to very swiftly export all of that steel to China and India is fishy, to say the least. And especially the fact that he's a former U.S. prosecutor who made his reputation prosecuting the mob, and being an anti-mafia guy. But I think at one point Giuliani went bad. I think he's a bad apple. I think he's, yeah.
I would say so too. So now it's this is so fascinating because Giuliani was one of the guys who prosecuted Greg Scarpa Jr., the Colombo guy. That you mentioned was
right.
a cellmate or was in the same prison with this guy, with one of the...
with Ramzi Youssef. So Greg
right.
Scarpa Jr. was put in Supermax prison, which is deep, deep down underneath one of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. So it's one of the most high-security prisons. And Greg Scarpa Jr. of the Colombo crime family was put with Ramzi Youssef. And so Peter Lance uses this in his book Cover Up, about 9/11. So he feels that the U.S. government, again, had a high degree of penetration into the so-called masterminds of 9/11. And again, we're talking rationally. We're talking about a crime that's never really been investigated. The 9/11 Commission was a farce of D.C. insiders. There's never been a court of law that's proven the government's case, and they haven't had to. Our culture has been very permissive about the 9/11 official story about Bush and Giuliani becoming heroes because of 9/11, but Bush and Giuliani should be suspects in the 9/11 cover-up, quite frankly. So, it's an interesting topic. Supermax prison housed Greg Scarpa Jr. of the New York mafia world and Ramzi Youssef. So, what's also interesting, this guy, Michael Chertoff. You know who Michael Chertoff is?
I absolutely do, yeah.
So Chertoff was Eliot Spitzer's mentor at the Manhattan DA's office, and Chertoff, if you read Chertoff's book, he actually says that he saw that the 93 World Trade Center bombing was an operation that was highly penetrated by CIA. He actually says this in his book, and it's almost like if you can't beat them, join them, because Chertoff then basically left the DA's office and went in, worked for an insurance giant, Marshall McLennan, it happens to be where the first plane hit the Twin Towers on 9/11. So maybe there was some sort of beacon, or maybe it was just a coincidence. But like Daniel Hopsicker says, surely that was just a coincidence.
Chertoff worked underneath Giuliani in the Pizza Commission, the Pizza Connection trial, and the Commission case. Oh, no kidding. Oh, yeah, he was he's on all the paperwork. He worked right under Giuliani in those cases.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you know about Chertoff. That's great. Well, Pizza Connection is very interesting, too, because one of the whistleblowers of Pizza Connection was an FBI good guy. I mean that as a compliment, not a good guy in the mafia sense. Okay. Richard Taus is who I'm talking about. He actually was a man of integrity, and he participated in the Pizza Connection case. And for those listeners who don't know, Pizza Connection has nothing to do with Pizzagate, but Pizza Connection was an FBI investigation into mafia money laundering using different pizzerias in like the late 80s, early 90s, I think. And then it led to this guy, Richard Taus of the New York FBI, looking into Iran-Contra, looking into Oliver North. And because he wouldn't go the other way, he's, again, one of these whistleblowers that got really screwed. He got sent away for like 33 years to 90 years on false charges of pedophilia. And he's still up in Clinton Correctional, upstate, right near Canada. I visited him there. It's a federal facility. He's a former Vietnam veteran. He's a former FBI special agent, so he's in a special section for former law enforcement up there. And very interesting guy, Richard Taus. He's a hero, and he's a hero in jail. So, again, it's kind of like a theme.
Now, in one of the videos I was watching today, you said you appreciate watching Alex Jones. And this was in 2008 you were saying this, so I don't know what you say today.
Yes. It was the 2008 Alex Jones.
Okay. So, because now, what do you make of people now who think that they have a friend in Trump because, well, he's a friend of Jones and Roger Stone is working with Trump. And but like you said, you got Giuliani's up to his neck and all that stuff like that. So what do you make of all that? What would you tell people who see hope in Trump?
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
Well, we have the Constitution in this country. You know, the Constitution prevents against cruel and unusual punishment. So yesterday, Trump came out for torture. The Constitution is all about creating a country that is, our history as a constitutional nation has been a history of the country getting stronger by welcoming political dissenters, religious dissenters. And, the Founding Fathers made it very clear that Muslims were included. The Muslims, this religion has been around since 500 or 600 years after Christ. So the Founding Fathers knew well about what they called the Musulman and, the different words for Muslim at the time. Washington talked about, giving religious freedoms to Muslims. So the idea that we're going to ban immigration from 6 or 7 countries that are Muslim, that would be probably illegal, and probably un-American. So I can empathize with people saying, I don't like Hillary, because I can see that Hillary is very corrupt and militaristic. For me as an activist, I'm turned off most by Hillary's connection to Henry Kissinger and the hawks of war, and the fact that she was the one that strong-armed Obama into supporting the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya, and now Libya is in civil war and chaos and violence. And so, I am alarmed about Trump. I was down there for the inauguration protests and tried to do what I could to spread the word.
Okay, so you have no faith that Trump is going to look into 9/11 because he's buddies with Alex Jones and Roger Stone?
Well, no, I didn't say that.
Okay.
He's also buddies with Giuliani, so he would have to kind of betray that friendship. I know Giuliani doesn't want an investigation of what's called Another 19. Kevin Ryan did the book Another 19. It's great. I don't know if you've read it, but Giuliani is one of the 19 neoconservatives that Kevin Ryan feels should be indicted and interviewed under subpoena in a court proceeding. And I totally agree. The book is exquisite. It's really well presented as a kind of a prima facie citizen's indictment. Alex Jones himself seems to be very much more pro-Israel, kind of doing a form of pro-Israel journalism that I've never seen him do before. So Jones used to brag that he, was not the sellout and that he wouldn't sell out, and he did indeed have opportunities to do so, and I believe him. I'm sure people from Fox or other places like Fox said, hey, you're a young, right-leaning, libertarian sort of guy, and you'd be great on Fox if you stopped talking about the Federal Reserve, and if you stopped talking about 9/11, and if you became a little bit, more pro-Israel, we could, there's people that can help you. I'm sure that he had that speech numerous times, and I'm sure eventually it got to him, especially on the, power is very intoxicating. There's a part of my politics that is influenced by anarchism, and it's a great way to try to stay free of the intoxicating effects of power. And so for Jones, I think what he saw with Trump was an opportunity to finally have his politics be accepted by much more people. And even Hillary Clinton saw this. She made an anti-Alex Jones ad. And in this case, I'm on Jones's side. I think Jones got attacked unfairly in that ad, and for her to grossly misjudge where people are at, most people are skeptical of the government and the media. A recent Gallup poll, Ed, said that only 34% of people trust the media, and that's shocking. It's like, who do we believe? Well, we've got the internet now, and we've got social media, and we have our networks of friends and families telling us what they feel is worth talking about. So, and that's valid. I think that's probably much more valid than the CNN, Fox industrial complex.
Now, yeah, I know. Yeah, we can get into that. I could talk to you for like 2 hours, man. Another 2 hours on top of the hour we're doing now. Now, getting back to your political history, your political growth in your life, because I was reading some stuff about you. One time you were with the Socialist Workers' Party, another time with the Communist Workers' Party, USA.
No. I was never with the Communist Workers' Party, and I had a brief dalliance with socialism, but really what I've been is a social entrepreneur. I've started different businesses.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, me too. I consider myself a socialist now too, I guess. But one thing we have in common, though, is I noticed that one of your interviews was done at the Yippee Museum back on 9 Bleecker Street. Now, I spent many. I lived there for a while. I spent many.
Kidding.
Oh yeah. I'm all over the. You're about 10 years younger than me, so we probably missed each other. Although you might know one of my cousins. Now, but how much activity did you have with the Yippies down there?
Oh, not much. But I've been in and out of there. I know Dana. I'm sure you know Dana Beal.
Sure.
And it's nice. I mean, they're right near the old CBGBs. They're kind of like, this last bastion of the kind of an old New York that is, unfortunately, kind of going by the wayside.
Yeah, it's changed so much. I haven't been down there for about, at least 12 years. And even then, it was ridiculous how much it's changed. And now, is the Yippee Museum still there, or it's gone? I thought they went out of business.
I'm not really sure what happened to it, if they lost the lease. I thought Dana had the lease there, but I'd have to Google that to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gone. And even then, I was there with the old 9 Bleecker Street, and then when you had the club across the street at 10 Bleecker Street at Studio 10. I've had A.J. Weberman on the show, too, more recently. Let's see.
Who's that?
A.J. Weberman. A.J. the coup d'etat in America. And A.J. Weberman. You must know A.J., right?
No, I don't think I know who that is.
Okay, yeah, he's on the... he was the Dylanologist. He invented garbology, going and sneaking into people's garbage and stealing their garbage. He wrote the book Coup d'etat in America, which was the first publication to connect the 3 tramps to the Watergate burglars. He's doing a lot of stuff now. In fact, he's testifying now down in Portugal, stuff with the Frank Sturgis, information that he has on Sturgis. Yeah. Now...
That does sound good, yeah.
Oh, no, it's good stuff.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It reminds me, we should mention this. I just read The Devil's Chessboard by David Talbot, and that's a great book, too. It's got a lot of information about relevant to, new revelations about the Allen Dulles-JFK rivalry and Allen Dulles' role in the JFK assassination.
Yeah, he promised to come on the show about a year ago, and then I haven't been able to get him to hammer him down. By the way, too, this Ahmad Salem promised to come on the show, too, but now he's disappeared off of Facebook. Do you have contact info for him?
Oh, yeah. I used to always use Facebook to contact him. He's not on Facebook anymore?
No, because Ted Rubenstein was supposed to get a hold of him for me, who was in contact with him. Ted Rubenstein from, May Brussel and Dave Emery, and he worked for Larry Flint, Flint Publications and stuff. He helps me out.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And he was connected with Salem, but I guess you have no contact for him now, right?
No, I don't think so. I could look around maybe later.
Okay, let me ask you a question, because you did mention Pizzagate. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I'm friends with Nick Bryant of the Franklin Scandal. So
Sure.
there's books, by State Senator John W. DeCamp about the Franklin Scandal, which is the scandal that kind of precedes Pizzagate. Sex is a very powerful thing, and people can use sex to use it as a kind of a tactic. Because if you do something sexual in a room, you never know if there's a camera on you if you're a powerful person, and then you're subject to bribery and blackmail. So, we have taboos about sex. We're very repressed about sex in our society. So, this idea of people don't even want to talk about Pizzagate because they feel like it's some sort of crazy topic But for me, it's very close to home. I've been looking at the Franklin Scandal for the last 10 years and or more, and definitely more. I got into the Franklin Scandal probably 14 or 15 years ago, and this was again a scandal that involved upper echelons of power in the GOP. It involved Catholic Church orphanage. It involved basically rich and powerful people. Connected to CIA, using sex and sex with minors, sex with homosexual underage sex, using it as a power tactic, using it as we're having a party, you can go do this in the back room, and no one will know. But actually, there's cameras, and so it's not about the sex; it's really about the power.
Yeah, the blackmail,
about control. Yeah. And blackmail. That's what it's really all about. Yeah.
Yeah, I had Nick Bryan on the show, and also, too, Henry Vinson, who was the actual madam in that case, Confessions of a D.C. Madam, not the other one, Palfrey. This was the homosexual D.C. madam. That was...
Yeah.
Yeah, it was... Oh, my God. Poor guy, too. They really did a job on him, man. They threw him in prison and did a job... And then back in prison later on when he kept talking about it. They really did a job on that guy. Now I'm kind of out of the loop in New York City politics these days. Now, you're working with something called Truth Action Project or Truth Action Party?
Truth Action Project. Truth Party is a different thing. But
okay.
The Truth Action Project is a group started last September at the 15-year anniversary of 9/11 here in New York. We officially launched it. Now it's a nationwide group. It's got active chapters all over the country. People are gathering petitions for a new investigation of 9/11.
Okay. Do you have a group in Vegas here?
I think so. Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that, and I will tell you later.
Okay. And were you a Bernie supporter?
You bet. I voted for Bernie in the New York Democratic primary.
Yeah, so did we, and they stole our vote. I don't know if you saw it happen here in Vegas.
I know. I'm actually friends with Michael Sanato, who was a Florida reporter. He's got done some work on a possible book proposal about how it was rigged, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and et cetera. The DNC. It looks like the DNC conspired against Bernie to take the primary from him.
Oh, yeah. I had people here from the Platform Committee and the Credentials Committee here. Actually, they got kicked off the committee the night before that were under threat of arrest. We had to put them on the air live. They were about to be arrested over here. What went on here in Nevada is just it's radicalized so many people. We got some people here really on the move here now. It's kind of turned out to be a good thing, I think.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, me too. Let's see. One more thing I want to ask, because we mentioned Hopsicker before, and Len Kolodny. You familiar with him?
Yeah. Who is that again?
He wrote the book, I think it was Silent Coup is the book he wrote, the first one. He just came out with another one about his theories about the Watergate. I've had him on the show a couple of times, too. But the reason why I ask you, because have you read the report on Trump the MI6 report by this guy, Christopher Steele, and Trump's connection with the Russians and stuff like that. Have you read that report?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then there's no point in asking about it. Oh, boy. Okay, we're down to like the last few minutes. What haven't I asked you about that's on your heart you want to talk about?
Well, let me think.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.
We covered a lot in an hour.
Okay, then let me ask you this. Greg Scarpa, what the hell did they have on Scarpa that would put him in that kind of a maximum security prison?
Oh, yeah.
His crimes were like marijuana dealing. This guy was running marijuana on Staten Island. It maybe had some...
Well, the Scarpa thing's interesting because then it goes back to FBI agent Lynn DeVecchio, and Lynn DeVecchio was dirty. In fact, got indicted on 4 counts of murder by the former Brooklyn DA, Charles Hines. And then at trial, the trial just sort of goes poof and it falls apart and the prosecutor falls over and they declare a mistrial. So it was total New York corruption, the blue wall of silence on the FBI level. And I wrote about this in my book, Slingshot to the Juggernaut, as well. I call the original article was called A Dive to the Mat. So that's the title of the chapter, A Dive to the Mat. It's kind of like on the waterfront. You're going to take a dive in the 3rd round. And so I could have been a contender. The prosecution was really going after this guy. But Lynn DeVecchio, again, was part of corrupt wing of FBI that was, presiding over shadow government operations, the narcotics trafficking of Oliver North and protecting Oliver North and CIA agents from its own people, like Richard Taus, who was working under DeVecchio. And this is kind of why Richard Taus got sent upstate for 33 to 90 years for false charges of pedophilia, because he got too close to the Iran-Contra operation. So DeVecchio, I think, with people like Greg Scarpa, this probably was why Scarpa got put away. Maybe Scarpa knew too much.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I knew Scarpa, and I can't imagine what they had him, because maybe there's a couple of murders back then, but mostly he was toward the end there. He was doing marijuana.
You knew Scarpa personally?
Yeah, I knew Giuliani personally too. I was involved in a Pizza Connection case. I was a defense investigator in the Pizza Connection case and the Commission case. I've been involved in all this stuff for years. Real quick, though, back in New York, what's going on right now with Anthony Weiner and his laptop? Is there any talk about that in the local papers?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I don't know if you've heard rumors, but is it possible that Huma Abedin was is the lesbian lover of Hillary? That's a rumor that I'd love to figure out about. And what's up with the 4 mysterious deaths of DNC people? I just saw a poster that said guns don't kill people, but investigating the DNC does kill people, and they talked about the 4 people like Seth Richards and other people that have mysteriously died. But yeah, Anthony Weiner and the laptop stuff and Huma Abedin is it's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah,
well, Sean Lucas, the process server, we're actually involved in that a bit here, because one of my hosts on Awake Radio, and he's on a bunch of the stations I'm on too, is Nico House. And he's with the law firm that's suing the DNC that Sean Lucas was the process server in. Now, it just came out that he was on some drugs. I interviewed some friends of his, lifelong friends of his, who said that, at the time they said he wasn't using any kind of heavy drugs, just marijuana, because he was a DJ too and stuff like that at night. But they said he wasn't depressed or anything like that. And at the time they were suspicious. And now they're all quiet. So who knows what's going on with that.
Yeah, I know Nico. Nico helped, was in New York City in the early days of 9/11 Truth.
Okay, great. Yeah, Nico's on my station. He comes on right before me on Fridays.
You're trying to sabotage me!
Okay, well, listen, my friend. What do you want to leave us with? Because we're out of time. What do you have coming up?
Well, I just think that we can't always just talk about the negative. You got to keep your eye on the sky, right. And got to keep your vision clear. And I urge people to pray and meditate and not hold on to anger and resentment, because we are a great country, we're a great planet, and our destiny as a country and as a planet is to enter an era of peace and nonviolence. It is possible because people are amazing. The creativity is amazing. The creativity of the signs that people made at the Women's March last Saturday were quite amazing. So I urge people to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm about to publish a new video that just interviews people at all the activists, including Michael Moore, at the last weekend in D.C. Yeah, because our future is one of peace. Our future is one of peace and nonviolence and consciousness. Our consciousness is evolving. Things are changing all the time.
I love that. It's almost like a prayer the way you end it there. And I definitely recommend the Sander Hicks YouTube channel just for this Iman Salam interview all by itself. That by alone is gold. So check that out. Now, you have an event coming up February 16th, though. What's that?
Oh, yeah, thank you. February 16th, if you're in New York City, please come to a free event at New Dramatists, 424 West 44th Street. It's right near Times Square, and we are doing a night of stage readings and dramatic readings of two new plays about 9/11, including my play that involves the late, great Dr. David Graham, 9/11 whistleblower, and also a play called Blanket of Dust. We'll just be doing short excerpts from these two plays. The second play, Blanket of Dust, is by Richard Squires, so I urge people to check it out if you're in New York City or if you want to come to New York City. And let me know if you heard about this, and I'll tell you more. You can email me or find me on Facebook, Sander Hicks.
Sander Hicks, and you can also go to sanderhicks.com. His book, Slingshot to the Juggernaut, Total Resistance to the Death Machine, means complete love of the truth. Thank you so much, Sander Hicks. I'm going to shoot you an email right after the show, okay?
Great, Ed. Thanks a lot, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, sir. Bye. Sander Hicks, too, by the way, you want to check out his stuff, Loft Beds NYC. Really cool stuff, carpentry work that he does. It's really, really good stuff. All right, guys, if you like the show, don't forget OppermanReport.com in the members section. That's how you support us here. If you want to send a donation, OppermanReport@gmail.com. You can send it via PayPal. Thank you very much.
Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities. Fentanyl. It could be hiding anywhere, including in your house, including in your medicine cabinet, or maybe at a friend's house when you're hanging out, playing games, and get offered a pill. Don't take chances. If a drug didn't come from a pharmacy directly to you, you can find fentanyl using a simple strip you can pick up at your local pharmacy. Don't take it until you test it, because fentanyl can be hiding anywhere. Brought to you by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Mental Disabilities.